So first I'll just be like defining a pirate and then telling you guys about the difference between a pirate and a privateer, which are two different things. So according to Philip J. Jenkins, his article in 2023, piracy is just robbery. So this just happens like outside of a specific country's jurisdiction, and it can be in the sea or in like the air, it just depends, but the main thing is it's just like robbery. So the government on the pirate ships was actually one of the first forms of a democracy. The leaders were like usually elected by like a democracy, and if they had any leftover money, they would split it up between everyone on the crew. However, it was kind of a strict government, so there were tough punishments if people didn't follow the rules on the crew. They'd be marooned or even killed. So that's where like the famous walk the plank comes from, which is from there. And then this is just like a picture of what the pirates actually looked like. So there's also a privateer, which is like a private group of people commissioned by the government. And they were originally hired during wartime to make reprisals, gain reparations, and just like try to hurt the enemy on the sea. And then after wartime, the people doing this realized that this was a pretty lucrative process and they could make a lot of money and they didn't have to be under control of the government. So that's kind of where they became pirates. And they would like steal, they would mostly steal gold, silver, jewelry. If they needed supplies like food or water, they would also steal cargo ships carrying that. And then they would take ransoms for ransom money. So this picture is like a picture of what the privateers looked like. So I just talked about the definition of a pirate and a privateer, and now Kyle will talk about famous pirates.
There have been many famous pirates that we know about because of movies and books. Some of these pirates include the Barbarossa brothers and Blackbeard. These pirates are some of the most infamous in history and are often known to be fearless and sometimes scary. The Barbarossa brothers, as seen here, were alive in the 1500s and became famous off of stealing European ships in the Mediterranean. According to John P. Rafferty, the author from Pirate to Admiral, The Tale of Barbarossa, published in 2017, quote, "By 1505, the Spanish and Portuguese were looking to make territorial gains in North Africa and began to attack coastal cities," end quote. This upset the brothers because of their Muslim heritage. After the attacks, they served as privateers under the command of Korkut, who was a son of the Ottoman Sultan. During these times, serving as privateers, they kept Spanish and Portuguese ships out of the Mediterranean. In 1512, Korkut died, which caused a succession of fights and caused the brothers to flee to North Africa in hopes of avoiding the Spanish government. While in North Africa, they also kept Spanish and Portuguese ships out of North Africa. They spent 3 years doing this, and they joined the region's kingdoms, and by protecting North Africa, they earned the trust of the people. In 1516, they led an attack on Algiers, which is a city that then fell to Arouge, which was one of the brothers. And then the other brother, Khizr, was named governor of the Mediterranean Sea. 2 years later, Arouge died, which was unfortunate for Khizr, and he had to take over for Arouge. While he was taking over, he spent his time destroying many Christian enemies, including one called the Holy League. 30 years after the death of his brother, he died in his palace in 1546. Another very well-known pirate, Blackbeard, which I'm sure we've all heard about. Blackbeard became famous in the late 1600s. Blackbeard was also known as Edward Teach, and he was born in North Carolina in 1680 and died in 1718. Not much is known about Blackbeard, and it is thought that he spent most of his youth wrecking ships in the West Indies. Blackbeard, an intimidating character as stated by Jesse Greenspan in the 2012 article, 8 Famous Pirates from History, quote, "Blackbeard intimidated enemies by coiling smoking fuses into his long, braided facial hair, by slinging multiple pistols and daggers across his chest," end quote. His appearance was not the only thing that made him feared by many. In 1716, he captained a ship called Queen Anne's Revenge. This ship was known to be undefeatable, and it had a crew of 300 men and 40 guns. Eventually, this undefeatable ship was sunk, and he later captained a ship called the Adventure. At the end of his reign, he became very confident and angered a man named Alexander Spotswood. Alexander Spotswood sent pirates to attack him, which Blackbeard was successful in destroying most of his fleet, but he was killed in a battle by a man named Maynard. It is said he received 5 gunshot wounds and 40 sword wounds, and he died in 1718. Now Maya will tell you about the history.
So pirates have been around for many years, and there's many documents about them. The first ones were said to be in ancient Greece and Rome, just like intercepting trade routes. But then in the 15th century, they became more popular because the trade started booming. So they would rob a lot of the ships coming from like Americas to Europe because those had like a lot of wealth on them and a lot of gold on them. And then around like the 15th and 18th century, there were corsairs, and they were in the Mediterranean Sea and North Africa, and they would like take ransoms and intercept ships in the Mediterranean Sea, and these were also called Barbary pirates. So, and then after that, the most famous age of piracy was called the Golden Age, which I'll talk about next. But in the 18th century, the pirates started decreasing. The government started giving their merchants more like defense and more stuff to like not be intercepted by the pirates, and the government would also hire like groups of people who would like try to track down the pirates and stop them from stealing these ships. And although like the amount of pirates have gone down, there still are like quote pirates today. So according to the International Commercial Crime Report in 2022, there were 115 pirate attacks, and the most were in East and Southeast Asia with 60. And although these were considered pirate attacks, they don't look like the stereotypical pirate. It just pretty much means people who have like stolen cargo ships. So that is kind of what they would look like today. And then this is just like a picture of what the corsairs look like. So next I'll talk about the Golden Age of piracy, which was during the 17th and 18th century. And it was mostly in the Atlantic and Indian Ocean. It was mostly British and American ships, but there also were some Dutch and French ships too. And in these, the ships were smaller because they could go in like more shallow land and they could travel more. And this was called the Golden Age because there were more cargo ships, so there were also more pirates. So I just talked about the history of pirates, and now Kyle will talk about how the media portrays them.
How does the media portray pirates? We know that the media often romanticizes pirates, but do they make it accurate? The presence of pirates began to make media appearance in the 18th century. Pirates have become popular in our today's pop culture with movies like Pirates of the Caribbean. If you've seen the movie, you know that Jack Sparrow uses his wits to outsmart his enemies, but in reality, real pirates would have used brute strength to conquer their enemies. The movie was set in the 17th century, meaning that it would be during the Golden Age of piracy. According to the 2021 article, The Fascinating Depiction of Pirates in Visual Media, Making Learning Fun by Osama Khan, quote, "In reality, there weren't pirates, but buccaneers and privateers." Of course, movies would use the term pirates because it's more popular and well-known. Pirates through the media have been glorified to make them more appealing and entertaining. If we go back to the 19th century, much of the material written about pirates is not accurate to the pirates of the 18th century. Like the media now, the pirate images constantly change with the popular culture of the current time. According to the 2022 article, is our depiction of pirate history accurate? Quote, "But they are not very much like real pirates. Instead, they are distant cousins of the historical thing once or several times removed by being filtered through 19th century popular culture. Pirates in the media are made to seem more entertaining at the cost of accuracy."
So overall, we've talked about the definition of a pirate, the definition of a privateer, some different famous pirates, the history of pirates, and then how the media portrays pirates. And we hope this just gives you like a more like specific idea of pirates, and it's not just like Pirates of the Caribbean.